everyone, and welcome to the Young Catalyst Conversations. My name is Lerato Nxomani-Pakade, and I am a talent strategist. And today we're going to be having a conversation about corporate culture in South Africa, and it's going to cover a wide range of topics, not least of which the gender pay gap. And I've got this incredible panel of young, fierce Black women that I'd love to introduce. So first on my left, I have Lwando, who is an attorney, and then I have Thandeka, who's an investment banker, and Ntyatyambo, who is in the FMCG space. Is that how you put it? A manager in the FMCG space. It might be cool to hear your reflections on, if you think back on the night before you started working, right? So the very first day of work, what would you say your expectations were, and how has reality measured up?
So I had expectations of quick progression to partner, to director.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember one of the first things I declared to a new friend I met on the job on the first day is that, because we saw the letterhead and we're looking at all the directors, we're trying to see, the racial composition of everything. And I'm like, I'm going to be on this letterhead in a couple of years. And she outright laughed at me. She was another Black woman. She's like, clearly this worker has no idea, right? And I used to think in that moment that she's going to remember this when I make partner one day, and I'm going to laugh at her. And what she said has actually turned out to be true. I'm not on a letterhead, so yeah.
Sure.
I'm Thandeka, Xaba, and I'm an investment banker. Night before I started working, I'm quite an energetic, ambitious kind of person. So night before I started working, I was like, I'm gonna kill it. Everyone's gonna love me. I'm just gonna be that girl first in, last out.
Yes.
My work is gonna pay off. They're gonna see me. They're gonna love me. And I worked. I'd say I worked really hard ever since, but you kind of see that there's other elements in addition to just your work ethic that contribute to how people perceive you and how well you do. And in addition to that, relationships amongst people in the firm add to how well people do. And so there were a few things that I lacked that resulted in me not ideally being where I wanted to be. Work wasn't the only factor.
So relationships referring to networks as well as sponsors as well as mentors
and culturally. Yeah.
Gotcha. Great.
Yeah. My name is Ntyatyambo. I am in the FMCG space, and I lead a customer business for one of the retailers in South Africa. I lead the Africa business on behalf of the company I work for. And in terms of day before, I had my mom in my head. So I remember distinctly ironing a white shirt.
Oh, wow.
And thinking my mom was like, oh, so I just have that memory for some reason. And in terms of expectations, I think I didn't plan to stay. I think at the time I was already a bit maybe jarred about corporate.
Before you started?
I didn't even start it, but I think I had older siblings and had heard things, and so it was kind of like a way of, the energies you can find in corporate. But the funny part of my story is that I'm still at the same place 7 years later.
Oh, sure.
So that's the funny part about it. I'm not there because I'm stuck. I think there because it actually surprisingly turned out well, kind of thing.
That's good to hear.
So yeah, but I think the night before, I thought, 3 years, then I'm doing something else.
Sure.
Yeah.
So on that point actually about being able, or choosing, let me say, to stay for those 7 years, and that it turned out better on the other side, I assume it wasn't a linear trajectory, right?
No,
couple
not
squiggles
at all.
on the way.
Absolutely. Definitely had its ups and downs, but I think really had some gifts along the way in bosses who became amazing mentors and became amazing coaches. I also, I think, have been blessed to have had 2 Black female managers who were like, I see your work ethic, but how do I help you with the other things, the soft things, the things that no one tells you about? Because I think as Black young women, sometimes you go in thinking, if I'm first in, last out, everyone's gonna see how well I work, but it's more than that. You know, someone needs to give you the right exposure, someone needs to be managing your image, someone needs to be helping you do that stuff at a certain level. So I think I was fortunate, those at different stages, but those two Black women were probably like interventions, you know? And they're like, I see you, let's go. So I think that's maybe part of the blessing I had.
Talking about ironing a shirt, I just my mind is on that because I distinctly remember going shopping. I made a conscious decision in varsity that I don't want to do vacation work. So I'm an attorney, and people during break would go and work at a firm and all of that. It's like, I don't want to know. I'm that kind of person. I don't want to know until that particular chapter starts. And so I had no expectations in that regard. I just went in with, unlike you having been told that, oh, it's tough and all of that, I was thinking, you know, it's going to be great, which it was, I must admit. But back to the clothing, I remember having now to go buy what lawyer clothing is, you know? And I remember choosing everything. So my mom was like, aren't you gonna buy a suit? I'm like, I'm not a suit person. And she's like, you should have been a journalist. And then, like, I remember thinking that if I can have some measure of control over something, at least can it be how I dress, and that I don't have to like package myself into like a two-piece suit. At the time it was Jenny Button suits. Everyone would go and buy those. So I just remember thinking, okay, I know I'm going to do this a little bit differently because I don't want to go the traditional way. I still wanted to keep a part of my personality, and that came out through clothing. So I remember thinking that the night before, that I hope I don't stick out in a bad way, but I hope this is acceptable, whatever I had on my first day. So.
And that's an expensive exercise, right? No one tells you that first 3 months with your rent and trying to get a car and trying to get a whole new wardrobe, makeup even that you have to wear every day. No one sort of prepares you for that.
No one.
But Lwando, I liked what you said about making a conscious decision from the beginning to stay true to who you are, or make sure that who you are is visible. Talk to me about how easy or difficult that's been to maintain over time, because I think there's a general agreement that there's pressure to assimilate, right? The models of people that we see who have been successful, part of that has been that assimilation.
I think naturally when you're younger, you're bolder. So I feel like I was pretty much more courageous when I was younger. But when you see things happening, even if it's not to you, but to other people, you become a little bit more timid. Like, oh, I don't want to end up like that person. But I think I've always been vocal about things. But I remember one particular conversation with the director that's on recruitment, right? And she brought me in. She was a white woman. She said, how do we get more candidates like you? And I think that was the first time I actually had to analyze what need means, you know, in the context of work. What was she trying to say? And it made me be a little bit conflicted with who I am, because I don't want to be a prototype of something that I was unconsciously representing. I knew what she meant. She meant that I am fitting in well at the firm. I can hold conversations with clients and directors, I think, you know, and I was likable, you know. And she was trying to say, how do we get maybe more black candidates like you, even though she didn't use race. But I think that's when I had to, you know, ask myself, how am I presenting myself in the workspace? And do I like the fact that I'm seen as a kind of prototype at the time? I'm not sure now, but back then, certainly. So I think that kind of worried me, because the point is not to get more of the same. I think what's needed is having different people. So it was hard for me to answer that that question, because it felt like I'd be betraying certain people if I said, wow. But, well, I did answer it by saying that there's a certain kind of, you know, maturity that a person needs to have when they step into the workplace, but also you need to understand people's particular backgrounds. And that the way I was raised, I don't have a problem talking to older people, but I definitely understand that other people find those cultural nuances particularly hard, but it doesn't mean that you know, you don't get people like that into the firm. I think that mix is healthy. So yeah, I think because I was outspoken, I think a lot of people gravitated towards asking me those kind of questions. Yeah.
Interesting. And we'll get back to the point about microaggressions.
Yeah. Yes.
I'd love to hear from you guys about the pressure to assimilate.
So I think similar to Lwan's, I was raised in a household where I was kind of encouraged to be outspoken. I had very open conversations with my parents at kind of a mature level, and there was never that like umntwana, like when you spoke to that thing. So I was always very encouraged to kind of be myself. Taking that into corporate though was different. So, you know, I had, in my first 3 years, I had a black female senior manager in the CA training program that I was a part of. And in as much as she was a black woman and she stood for like empowerment of young black people, she always had a threshold. You know, she wanted you to be outspoken and she wanted you to say what you wanted to a certain point where everyone else was comfortable. As soon as it got uncomfortable, she was like, I think you should like hold back on your, you know, like save this conversation for like 3 years time when you have more leverage at the firm. And she actually told me once, like, I hear your views and I see you, but I think you need to wait it out like I did. Just wait 3 years and then you can start talking about like diversity and like more black women at the firm. And I was like, I can't suppress who I am for 3 years just to get to a position and then finally be able to speak my truth, you know? So I think in the beginning it was welcome, but then I think the more years I spent at the firm and the more I grew in the firm, it became more of a point of tension because suddenly my truth was too much or people were a bit uncomfortable now because I was addressing or pointing things out that no one wanted to face. Like the fact that I was the only I'm the only black female in my area. People were just like, you know, we're trying, just like, stop raising this point, you be getting there, you be patient. And I was like, this can't be life, guys. You know, it felt very like I can't be oppressed in what I'm allowed to say in the 20th century in, you know, Johannesburg.
The 21st now.
Well, sorry, the 21st. And yeah, so I guess it's for my experience is that it was welcome up to a point. And as soon as people became uncomfortable, it was like, oh, okay.
Dial it back. Just a little.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Sure. I think what you ladies are saying is so interesting because it speaks to that being a good black.
Yeah.
You know, and a gratefulness that for some reason we are expected to have, you know, about being in certain spaces, which is nonsense. But in terms of my experience of genuineness and bringing myself to it, I think for me, I early on had no choice. So maybe I don't think I was conscious about it, to be honest. Maybe an element of how I was raised, maybe, but I don't think I was conscious about it. I think one of my very first job was working with a particular retailer in this country who is very white, very male, very above 40, very Afrikaans. So I don't have Afrikaans, I don't have rugby, I don't smoke, you know. So I'm running out of tickets fast, kind of situation. And because of that, I think all I had was to be myself, you know. And because I walk in the room, I'm already the only black person, and everyone is aware of that, and I'm aware of that. And then I'm the only female, and everyone's aware of that, and I'm aware of that. And then I quickly realized that, okay, so how's about maybe you just try being you, and you see where it goes, you know? So, like, I wear my African print clothes on a Saturday, I wear them on a Monday, I wear them on a Wednesday. And I think that was probably just an unexpected blessing. And since then, I think as I've grown in the company, I've always just continued to be that. I think also trying to be more conscious of the more you get into leadership spaces, to not be afraid to have those conversations. And it's uncomfortable for people, you can see, but I strongly believe in that, you know, I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. And I have to take it as far as I can. And if at some point it's like, okay, then let's throw it down. At least they must know it's Ntyatyambo though. She gave us a good run for our money on these topics because it's important. I think people will never change unless they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, and that's why BE is important, and that's why affirmative action is important, because I'm also inclined to support black women. I'm a black woman, I'm inclined to support black women. White people are white people, they're inclined to support white people, you know? And you need an external factor to come in and disrupt to force that diversity. And that's a fact. It's never gonna happen over a beer of us chatting. It's gonna happen in an uncomfortable way. It's gonna happen with us calling it out. And some people will listen and some will not, and some will go home and say, oh, there's these crazy girls at work who are causing havoc, you know? But we have to try. And I think that's what, as I've grown in the company, always kept in mind and thought about.
That's interesting that you say that, because so there's research actually globally that says it's basically like a transformation tax. So if you're the one that's like raising your hand about black issues, or you're the one raising your hand about gender issues, that sometimes that takes a knock on your career progression. So I love the clarity that you speak about, that you have. But in my work, I come across a lot of young professionals who, I mean, some of them say, I got here and it was the first time I realized I was black against my will, so to speak, right? And there's something that happens to your confidence when you see that it actually won't be enough to just put my head down, you know, and get going. So I guess my question to you is, with the clarity that you have, when you see it happen with younger professionals coming through, how do you encourage them, and are you deliberate about that support?
Absolutely. For me, yes. I'm very deliberate about looking out for junior women, junior black women, very deliberate about that, very deliberate about making a conscious effort to go up to you and say, you know, let's have a coffee at some point. Just try to understand how's your experience been, how's your integration going, how are things.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the time, you know, the thing with corporate is that it's not a policy issue. You know, like the policies are there, the policies are right, the policies are perfect. Like there's little input to give in a policy perspective. It's the microaggressions, it's the small things, it's the someone speaking over you, it's you being left off an email that's about your part of the business, it's you being overridden in a decision that, you know, it's those small little things that happen all the time. And those are the things that I think we need to invest in junior women as they grow, to be confident to speak.
Yes.
And to say, no, that's not going to work, or no, I didn't appreciate it when you said that, or no, I didn't appreciate it when it happened like that. But we also have to put everyone in a room and have a conversation of, guys, black, white, male, female, what's the big idea here? We really have to, otherwise we'll only be building women who are like these hardcore warriors all the time. But what about the men? And what about the race issues? And what about the people who are the executors of the stuff? Because we need to remember, I think our society is, especially I think with patriarchy, that's what we all grew up in. You know, at some point you audition for your dad and your brothers, and then you and your mom and your sisters, you go dish, you know? And then you think that same guy who at home, his wife is dishing for him, at work, why is he going to be different? His expectation is that you don't talk, because his wife doesn't talk. And we have to address that stuff. We have to challenge those people.
And look, I agree with you. We'll get to the point about like, how do we move beyond just our affiliate groups to have the bigger inclusion discussions. But I'd also love to hear from you guys around this concept of black sisterhood, you know, and like holding each other down. You know, we used to have crying in the bathroom sessions. Like that's what it was. You know, if you need it, we gather, we send an SOS. And then when we're done, we fix your makeup and we continue. So, yeah, what's your experience been like from that perspective?
I think, so that's a tough one for me, because where I work, there's this whole like, you know, don't make someone think there's a problem before they've experienced it. So as someone who's older black female in the firm, I'm always in this position where, you know, I want to reach out, but you get like young, naive black girls coming in, same hat that I had when I came in, like work hard, gonna be the best. And then they come to the realization that it's not really a work hard, get what you want game. So it's kind of like, are you the catalyst? Should you be the catalyst for them having that realization? Or do you wait for them to have that realization and come to you and say, listen, this is what's happened? Where my lived experience has been that a lot of younger girls have come to me after the fact to say, this is what I experienced, and you know, this happened to me, and I kind of share my experiences growing up in the firm, and that's kind of how we've built this sisterhood. On the other hand though, people watching in and seeing this sisterhood often become quite intimidated and question, why are you guys, you know, having this breakfast or all together all the time? And you know, I got feedback from one of my managers to say, I think you just need to stop hanging out with this person and this person specifically, because you're always with the black girls. Like, you need to actually hang out with other people, and we're the only black girls on the floor. So it was kind of like, oh, you know, you're white, you kind of get to hang out with everyone you want. Like, if I had the option, you know. So it's, you know, I think it's a great support system, and I think I wish I had more of that coming in. And I'm always more than happy to share my experiences and stories with other younger black girls coming into banking. But you do kind of feel stigmatized, or that, you know, there's a lot of unnecessary attention on you as a group when you start to have these like get-togethers, or you all walk together, then people like question. And another thing I noticed is that people often blame that for a lack of career progression. So they'll say, you know, you don't integrate always with the same people, so how can you expect to, you know, to grow in the firm because you don't have beers or try go to the golf, and you're always with your sisters talking about weaves and insecure, like how are you gonna climb the ladder like that? So yeah, that's my experience. I don't have a conclusion, but that's kind of just been my lived experience.
So I would say that it's kind of like two levels to it. One is, I'll use social media as an example, and I don't think there's anything wrong with social media, but you need to know who you are first before you know, put yourself on that kind of a platform, because the stuff people say, if you don't know who you are, can pull you in all kinds of direction, or you end up losing a sense of self. It's the same as work. I feel like people start working really young in this country. Like, you know, 22, we were already, you know, in these companies with these great responsibilities. Unlike, you know, for instance, in the US, by the time you are a full-fledged attorney, you are in your mid or late 20s because it's a postgrad. So we've started doing that here, where universities are introducing law as a postgrad, just to make sure that, you know, you're a little bit older. So now imagine 22, you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with high stakes and all of that. And my thing has always been to younger professionals is that if you can, put in your time to get the qualifications and get admitted, be an attorney. But if you can afford to take a break, either go back to school, travel the world, do something else. Because I think one of the things I've noticed is if you wrap up your entire self-esteem as to what happens at work, it's going to be a very dangerous situation for you, because every time someone, you know, gives you a bad performance review, or every time a client shouts at you, every time you mess up, it's a direct hit at your value as a person. But if you've taken yourself out of the situation and you sort of have a sense of self, and you know that you're smart, and you know that you're capable, you've done other things outside of being at this particular job, I think you can take the punches a little bit better and recover quicker. So that's one thing where I try to tell people that even if you can't afford leaving a job,
there's a bars right there.
But if you can't leave a job, I would say, you know, find out what your other interests are outside of your work. Have other things feeding you, like a romantic relationship. You can't get everything from one person. You need your friends, you need your family. Same with work. Work is one aspect. Try and find out what are the other things you like. If you did sports in school
Yeah.
and you were good at it,
Yeah.
and it gave you that sense of, you know, accomplishment, you know, in high school that I was in the A team or whatever, try and get that by seeing, can you join a team, you know, what else do you like to do? Don't be just about the job. I know people will hate me saying that, you know, because you have to be all in, you know, in a profession. If you're not all in, there's a problem. But I think people really suffer mentally and in other ways because you are all in.
Yeah.
And then my other thing is the beginning part of your career, I think, is learning. So for me, the race thing didn't come up until much later on because I was fortunate to have a white male boss who actually wanted to expose me to everything, wanted to share his clients. So he was very generous that I didn't know the other side till much later on. So I always say to people, you know, to younger professionals, is that sometimes things don't come with an invitation. You know, sometimes it's about inviting yourself to things. You know, you're never going to get an embossed invitation. I hereby invite you, Lerato, to this great meeting. It's about finding out where things are happening, who's doing what, and attending those meetings. But that support system is great because one of my first initial like sisters at work, it was organic. We just gravitated towards each other because we were like one of the only 2 black females. So I found that I could be more candid with her. I didn't have to be guarded and all those things, and we had each other's backs. But I also came from a multiracial high school, so I wasn't skeptical of white people at that point. So I felt like I really did open myself up to the entire group. But when it comes down to it, there's nothing like speaking your own language. There's nothing like, you know, connecting on that level. So the sisterhood was there, but it wasn't exclusive. For me, it wasn't. But some of my black friends had to tell me that those people are not your friends. And that was a shocking thing. I was like, what do you mean? Like, no one has ever said that to me. I've always had white friends all my life.
Yes.
And you do find that once you mix money and friendships, you'll see people's true colors. When promotions are on the line and things like that,
Yes.
then you'll see who your
Yes.
friends are.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you've come to this point about promotions. This is a question I want to ask. Have you ever negotiated a salary or advocated for a promotion for yourself? So specifically from the perspective of being a woman and being black, is that something that you've had the experience taking control of?
You know, in law it's hard because you pretty much get paid what you put in.
Okay.
So there's a knock-on effect. If when you're trained, you're not trained well, or you're not exposed to clients, and you're not getting the work, you're not going to get the money. It's all about targets, budgets, and all those things. So the more work you do, the more you get paid. So the pay gap or, you know, money issues hasn't really been an issue for me because when I first started, I had a generous boss. So I felt like he had integrity, so I didn't have to worry about being shortchanged in any way. And also, some of these careers, when you start out, you actually get paid way more than you expected. So the bar is already high. Like, oh, I'm doing great. I think it's only by comparison where you realize, okay. But I have to say that, I have to say that's been the one, you know, in a superficial manner, it's been fair in the sense if you do the work, you'll get the money. But when you look at all these other issues about how do you get the work, the networks, are you trained, were you exposed, do you have clients and all those things, then it starts affecting your progress in terms of your money. But having swapped jobs and having, you know, gone to another like institution, if you know what you make at your own, at your current job, you then get to this issue when you move. And they want to know how much you're making. And if you're not vocal, you may find yourself making the same. And also if you have a certain kind of personality, they're like, oh, we can offer this person this much. They don't really, so never go in with the attitude that money doesn't matter. You have to do the horse trading thing. And I think we're very shy when it comes, I don't even know how much my friends make because we don't really talk about it, other than the ones who are like, you know, making a lot of money and they're kind of shocked. They're like, ooh, I'm making millions.
Have you guys negotiated? And also, what do you think would happen if today, for everybody that has the same work experience, relatively the same level of responsibility, it was revealed how much everybody earns.
Sure.
Yeah, what do you think would happen?
So the structure of my career has been a 3-year kind of articles training period. So during those years, it's not really a negotiation. Everyone is poor. They kind of give you your annual salary letter. There's no conversation about it.
Yes.
So my first real kind of salary discussion was this year in my permanent job. And so what we were told is that everyone on my level is starting on the same base amount, and we're all getting paid the same bonus. So this is not the year, to discuss, any increases, but next year we can start talking about like any increases based on the work you've done for the division. And I kind of took that as Bible. I was like, okay, cool, like that's fine. But I heard that other people in my division were unhappy about the amount that we've been paid because they compared it to other investment bankers at banks, local banks in South Africa. And then we got called in a few days later to be told, actually, we're going to increase this and double your bonus.
Turns out there's more.
Because we heard that, and I was like, wait, so I sat here and I actually just took what this guy said as the truth. Like, I didn't negotiate. I mean, the only question I asked was, is this based on industry standards? And he said, yeah, it's based on industry standards. But to my knowledge, it actually wasn't, because other people were more vocal about it and said that I have friends in other banks, and this is so far from what other people are earning. And so our senior had to go negotiate for a raise across the board for all people on our level, and it happened. And it made me think, like, am I really backing myself in these kinds of conversations? I personally don't think I would know how to have that conversation today, if I'm being 100% honest. So yeah.
I got you.
Train me, please.
This salary thing is so interesting because so I've never previously I had never negotiated one. I was about to negotiate one, and then I got the increase. So I think I left my negotiation a little bit too late, but the increase was in line with kind of what I was thinking. But then it made me think, maybe there's more on the table, But a funny story for me, there's a colleague of mine, a black guy. He started maybe about 1.5 to 2 years before me. And he once told me how from his second salary increase, he negotiated it. And at every life stage, when he was getting married, when he was relocating, when he was coming back into South Africa, when he was at every single life stage, he has negotiated a salary. And he, funny enough, was saying to me that I don't think you can see the golden egg that you have right now, because I was recently engaged. And he was like, you have a golden egg, girl. You need to go put those people in a room, tell them how, you know what, I just want to focus on you guys. So if you guys can just pay me enough, I can get someone else to focus on my wedding, and I can be here.
That's a thing.
So it's so funny that I took that, I was talking to my partner about that now. And this was the lovely flip side he gave me, and we were just laughing about how these biases are just so continuous. I'm telling him the story, I'm like, so that's how I'm also going to approach this thing. And he says to me, the funny thing is that works for him because he's a guy. So he's getting married, so he's telling them how, guys, you guys are going to give me a good increase so that I'm so focused, I'm all yours. I'm not worrying about, my wife can pay someone to plan our wedding, and I'm here. And they put the money on the table. And he says, for you, the flip side could be you say that, and they say, sure. If already she's doing that now, imagine when she has a child.
Yeah.
Imagine when she has 2 kids. Imagine when, and then the horror story starts for them. Whereas for the guy, it's not a horror story. It's like, great, let's pay you. Nothing changes. Great. Oh, you've got a newborn. Let's pay you. Nothing changes. Great. So that's also how the biases continue even in the negotiation process, even as you're going through your life stages. And I think we need to do it more as women. We need to put our money issues more on the table. And you're so right. I think part of the issue is that we don't even know the the band.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, we don't even know the band. So
Yeah,
this guy put me onto the band. He was like, the bottom is here, the top is here. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Really? And he was like, now think about where you are relative to the band. He was like, at our level, so now we're like at the same level. He's slightly more experienced than me, but we're in the same level. Like at our level, at our average kind of time in company, this is the band.
Linked to that, it's not really about salary, but it's related in that I also had a black guy friend who started out articles same time as me. And then we were just chatting, and I'm like, oh my God, I really hate this part of the job, which was like a very admin, go and deliver things and, not substantive. So he's like, no, I don't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, no, I told them that I didn't go to school to do that.
That's it.
So it blew my mind. I was actually like, and life continued for him, right? Because I think in our minds we always go to the most extreme thing that's going to happen. You think you're going to say no, or make demands, and they're going to fire you. And maybe it's not going to be the worst thing. So I like that he showed me that something that I also tell younger professionals, that it's okay to set boundaries, because we think we are so grateful for this job. I will not rock the boat. If you need me to babysit your kids, which is something I did. I babysat kids. I went to buy cigarettes for someone, and then when he told me, I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I really, those conversations amongst people in terms of how we do things differently will let you know that you're not gonna die, mate. You're not gonna be fired. So if you put a boundary to say, I will not do this, I want to do that, that actually you may end up getting even more respect, and people are gonna be very careful in how they approach you, because you've said, don't cross this line.
And it's all right, and I think that it comes down to that we're grateful. We're too grateful for this thing, and it's not. They must be grateful that you woke up every day and you showed up. They must be like, sure, thank God she's here. Like, honestly, we are too like, oh, bye. It's not that. And I think it maybe also links to a self-worth thing in terms of our ability, like
culture.
And like, do we believe that if they fired you today, you could be anywhere?
Well, my grandmother used to say
could
to
go
me,
anyway tomorrow.
and I wanted to listen, this is not the kind of situation I'm in. I'm not going to get fired. So you have that fear that your family's like, oh my God, you have a job, please protect it and don't lose it and all these things.
My mom with and I'd love to hear your trade story. My mom would be like, at least you must style. So twist it, then neat. Work, this is gonna be a thing. And and it's all those things. That's the call you're getting. The white boy's not getting that call.
I've never had a direct hair thing, but I've heard other people's hair issues. But for me, maybe I was oblivious to it, or maybe it is the boundary that I think I put up so well that don't come to me with stuff like that.
But on the pay issue, when we were discussing it prior to this, and it just made me think, like, how do we actually know if there's a gap? Like, back to what you said, you don't know until you know. So in your mind, you think you're being compensated adequately, but because the information is not public knowledge and it's not open, how do you actually know?
You're right. I think it comes right down to this information asymmetry, right? Like, the person on the other side of the negotiating table knows you haven't asked around. Whereas guys will tell you before you even ask, right? Among themselves, they discuss. City pays this much, R&B, whoever the different employers are. This is how much they pay. So as a result, they then have that leverage,
benchmark going.
And they know that it's a valid data point. So if that's one thing that I'm like picking up, is how do we decrease that information asymmetry? And then I want to bring it back home, right, to relationships. I think you mentioned relationships earlier, right? And what happens for us when you sort of put your foot on the accelerator as far as your career goes? What does that look like? Because I think also there's been recent research published about how the person that you're married to is one of the substantial determinants of your success.
Absolutely.
So what has that been like for you guys?
I'm single, that's what it's been like.
I'm like, I'm pushing my own girl.
I'll tell you this. I remember being 16, and it's a time where certain people are getting pregnant and certain things are happening and they're not realizing their goals. And I remember making this prayer. I'm like, God, please, like, can I get to 28? Can I just do all the things I need to do? And then 28, things can happen. Like, I understand it's life, but so I felt like I almost punished myself by having this singular focus in terms of, achieving certain things. And also I'm an only child, so I feel like I'm my parents' only shots that can brag about, like if certain things befall me, it's like, I want them to have things to brag about. So I think it's weird, I think I've always cared more about work accomplishments or just building myself up as a person than relationships, to a point where it's been detrimental. But I've also observed certain people my age who have gotten married, and the thing that fears me is no one is doing it the way that I hope to do it. So I don't have that blueprint of someone who hasn't put their career on the back burner. So I've seen all my friends almost retreat for a couple of years, and then now they're making the comeback, and that scares the hell out of me, because I remember this one time saying to a friend that people say when you get married or you have kids, like the meaning of life is just going to reveal itself. What's important is going to I'm like, I actually like what I like now. What's important to me now is pretty cool. That's not a selling point to tell me that like all those things are not going to matter anymore. I still want them to matter. So I want to meet someone who's still as passionate about work, because this is not a placeholder career for me. I've chosen this career. I actually like it. I want to be good at it. And those other things can also go to enhancing that. Don't tell me that they're not going to matter once I meet the guy or have the kid.
You're right. And the more stories that we share with each other, the more you're like, oh, okay, maybe there is an example. Because I remember very close to my engagement, where I had an opportunity to continue to be on a project outside of the country. And I had to make a decision, right? Because it was like 10 days out, 4 days in, 10 days out, 4 days in. So I had to make a decision to say, okay, in these 4 days, I need to split myself between my family and my relationship and my friends, etc. And am I willing to do this for another round of 3 months, But understanding that it was going to accelerate my career, I had to make that decision, and it didn't go down well in all camps. But, the more we share about the fact that we are deliberate about our careers and that we know what we want and we understand what
you like it.
And we like it's not a placeholder. I love that you said that. But maybe just to wrap it up, guys, I think it would be cool to ask, what advice would you give a young you back on that day, right? What do you wish you had known at the time that we can sort of immortalize for people who are at the beginning of their careers?
I think for me, a young me, I would ask a young me, what's her bigger picture? Because I think it's so easy to get caught up in what you're doing today, your 9 o'clock, your 11 p.m., your 11 a.m., your 5 p.m., and then preparing for the next 9 o'clock the next day, and forgetting the bigger picture. And I think that's when you get stuck, because I know a lot of people who have been in corporate for many years and are now like 12, 13 years and are looking back and they're like, look, I should have left 6, 7 years ago. And I'm like, wow, that's how quickly time goes and how easily you get stuck. So know your bigger picture, keep your bigger picture in focus, and not be afraid to make the hard decisions. When it's a no, it's a no, it's a yes, it's a yes.
Awesome. Thandeka?
I think for me, it would be to know your truth. So I think just reflecting on my life, I think I did a lot of things because it was the right thing to do. I was good at it, I was smart at certain things, so I did it. But I think something that I wish I'd done more is question myself and know my truth, and then live my truth.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
Quickly, don't be scared to start again. Don't stay in a bad situation because you're scared to start again. Always acquaint yourself with accept that at certain point you'll have to start again, and it's okay.
And it's part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me it would be know what you're here for. Right? Because I think for a lot of us, once it starts getting difficult, once we start understanding, oh, there's no one that looks like me up there, it's so easy to just, you know, opt out.
Yes.
So for me, it's like, build yourself a criteria that says, have I gotten this, have I gotten this, have I gotten this? And only then will it make sense to make that career change. Anyway, it's been incredible having this conversation with you guys. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, I wish so too.
I know,
exactly.
right?
But it's been
the relationship one was getting juicy.
Yeah, I was ready.
I'm ready for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.